Hello, hello. Jamie here. Hope everyone is doing well. It is Friday, February 19th, 2021. This is the stimulus update and Q&A, and I would love to know where you guys are watching me from when you get here, and if it is also a winter wonderland where you are, because right now it is a total winter wonderland, and we are covered in ice and snow. So come on up, tell me your questions, tell me you're here so that I know that you can hear me. I'll start by giving just an update of what is going on with the stimulus bill. There's another stimulus bill, $1.9 trillion currently being discussed in Congress right now. Potentially there may be some more movement on that next week, so I may have more to tell you about next week. This would include things like another stimulus check, potentially. They're looking at kind of the limits and whether they would change the limits for that stimulus check. This also could include some things to extend unemployment, and even some credits around childcare, right? So expanding the child tax credit and actually making it into monthly payments, which would be a really interesting thing to do. So lots still being discussed right now. We don't really know where that's going to go, but I'll keep you guys abreast of anything that is applicable to you guys, especially once we have something that's actually passed and looks like it may actually come into fruition. But there's still a little ways to go on all of that. Lots of you guys are in warm places. So I see San Diego. Let's see, Seattle. I guess that's not warm there. Flagstaff, Arizona, with no snow. I don't know where Cedar Park is, Jeannie, but I hope that you guys are doing okay over there in Texas. I'm really thinking about you guys. I know it has been a tough go. We are covered in snow, but thankfully we have not had any power outages. Our water is good, so I am thankful for all of that. Okay, guys. So let's talk about kind of updates on where we are. So I was just kind of pulling up on the SBA website to see if anything has changed. So I was just looking to see, it looks like shuttered venue grants, still not accepting that. I don't know when they will. So for any of you guys who are still waiting on your shuttered venue grants, I know that's frustrating because that has some impact on whether you apply for a PPP or not. But unfortunately, it does not look like those are open yet. They are right now reaching out to people about the EIDL grants. If you're in that low income area and you have been identified as being in a low income area, then they're going to reach out to you specifically to see if you qualify for the additional amount of the EIDL grant. So this is it was $1,000 per employee. You had to have already gotten it last year, right, when they were offering it last year. And this would allow you to go all the way up to the max 10,000, but you have to be in a low income area and you have to be able to show a decline in gross receipts as well. So for those that are waiting that out, the best thing that you can do right now is just kind of wait and see if you get an email. I've seen those emails even still coming out this week. So if you haven't gotten one yet, it doesn't mean you're not going to be eligible. But right now they're just kind of rolling that out to people. Let's see. So PPP, I want to pull up some PPP data because I think that this is useful. Let's see if I can find, here we go. I'm going to pull up the data, and this is all data that's available on the SBA website, but I think it's useful to show you guys because I know a lot of people are trying to decide if and when they're gonna apply for another PPP loan. So here's all the data through now, through the 15th of February. So you can see at this point, for the second round, it's 125 billion has been spent. That means there's still quite a bit left. I'm trying to remember exactly how much. I think we had 284. I might be making that up. I think it's 284, however, is the total amount that was authorized this round. Some of that was left over from last round. I think that's right. We're going to go with that. So that means you've still got probably about another 150 billion left. So we're not even half gone. So for those that are really worried about it, yes, people are getting PPP loans. I know for some it's taking a long time. I know they're still running into a lot of errors where the process is a lot slower this time that's largely due to fraud prevention techniques that they've put into place. So people are getting a lot of kickback, like it's getting kicked back to them, and they're getting weird error messages. And I think they're still working through a lot of that, but people are getting funded. Let's see. There's just some good information. Again, they post one of these every single week on the SBA website. If you go to the Paycheck Protection Program section, you're going to be able to find how many loans have been approved, who the lenders are that are approving them, the states, the loan size. I always think this is interesting. So it looks like the vast majority of loans are under, from a number perspective of loans being given, are under $50,000. However, that's not the total. The total net dollar amount is, it's not the highest. So the overall average loan size, when you average it all out, is about $75,000. So they are focusing a lot on smaller people this time around, which is really, really good to see. That was not the case with the very, very first round of PPP, but it does look like they fixed some of those issues, and that smaller people are able to get that through. Now you can see here's the top lenders. Not surprisingly, a lot of the big guys. I don't know who these people are though. That's interesting. A lot of the big guys are going to be up on top. Now I don't necessarily think the big guys are the best ones to go through your PPP for. I know Cross River does quite a bit with the smaller loans. So that might be an option for people that are looking. I know there's been some specifically with PayPal. I think the loans are now, the second rounds are now going through, but those of you who might have gotten like a first round with PayPal, I know that they have had some delays on applying for forgiveness. So there's just delays, I feel like, all over the board. And applying for forgiveness with certain lenders and applying for round two, everything, yes, Kim, everything is very slow. It's very slow. So it's not just you. Don't feel like it's just you or your bank or something's happening. Yes, exactly. So Joyce is saying, today I received an email from Chase telling me that SBA is having issues and they're working with them to resolve them. Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting similar emails. So if you're not hearing back or you're not getting the response that you want, it's not just you. It just seems like a lot of these fraud prevention techniques are causing a lot more hoops to jump through, which is good and bad, right? Of course, we don't want people to commit fraud, but the people who need the money need to be able to get the dang money. So they got to figure it out. Oh, good. 9 days from the application. That's awesome. So Mark says Cross River did well for him. So that might be a good option for those of you guys who are looking for. And feel free to post in here too, you guys. If you've had a good experience with any of your lenders, feel free to post that, because I think it's always helpful to see who it's working for. So we're still waiting for ERTC. Let's talk about that for a second. What is ERTC? ERTC is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. If you are an employer, you employ people, and you have not watched my video about ERTC from a couple of weeks ago, I need you to go do it. And because of that, I actually linked it above. So you'll see it linked on this video, where there's a video link to the YouTube video where I talk about the Employee Retention Tax Credit. The IRS still has not updated their guidance on ERTC, which is driving me slightly crazy, considering we're in the middle of tax season and we still don't have full explanatory guidance. We have general guidance that was in the actual bill that was passed, but oftentimes it's best to see how the IRS is going to approach it. So for example, I'll just show you guys really quickly. This is what you see when you go to the Employee Retention Credit under the CARES Act. We go to irs.gov and search for the ERTC. This big old giant box up here basically just says that it's not been updated to reflect changes due to the bill that passed December 27th. So this is confusing a lot of people. If you're, I've had a ton of people tell me that they went to their accountant and said, hey, I need to claim the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and their accountant is saying, no, you're not eligible because you got a PPP loan. That's no longer true. But those accountants, what they're doing is they're going to these FAQs, of which, you guys, there's a ridiculous amount of FAQs on this on the IRS website, none of which are updated for the new bill. And so it's making it really confusing for accountants who aren't up to speed on the fact that the December 27th bill changed that, right? Because they're still looking at the old FAQs. But if they are, I would direct them here. And then there have been a couple of articles out there about, or you could direct them actually to the text of the bill from December 27th if they're still not aware of the fact that ERTC, you can get it. And you can get a tax credit, you guys, of up to $19,000 per employee. Okay. Not, oops, I just took myself off. This is not for self-employed. The question that was being asked though from Julia was about owner and spouse wages. In here, it's really vague. So they say you can't use it for, your children or your grandparents or other people related to you, but it's really, really vague in here about owners. So different CPAs are going to probably right now approach it differently. Some are saying, yes, you probably can. Some are saying probably better not to. I'm more on the side of being conservative is better, because if you wanted to take it and know that you're going to have to watch this and potentially do another revision down the road, then you could do that. You can ask your payroll provider, but a lot of them are kind of passing the buck to people's accountants as well. So it's unfortunately one of those situations where there's just a little bit of gray area. So I'm not going to opine on the gray area because I'm not your accountant. So I can't. So that's one of those things that I am kind of steering clear of to give specific advice, because it is so open to interpretation. I like to speak in fact, and I really like to speak in fact reading from an IRS website, but unfortunately they have been a little slow. I do know the IRS is drowning. I heard today that they got, I think it was 3 times more calls this January than they did last January. And it's just all the questions that people are asking about ERTC and filing your taxes for this year and PPP and all of that. Yeah, feel free to direct your CPAs. A lot of people are doing that, where they're sending my video about ERTC to their people. I also have a calculator. It's $17 now. It was $7. People are not happy with me because my video still says it's $7. It's $17 now. It was intro pricing that I did not caveat. So it's a $17 spreadsheet, but it can save you thousands. A lot of people have already told me how instrumental that spreadsheet has been in helping them figure out that they were even eligible for this credit and estimate how much they might be eligible for. So ultimately what you're going to do with ERTC is you're going to, if you're claiming it for 2020, which you can claim it retroactively for 2020, you're going to amend your Form 941. You're going to do a Form 941X. And then for going forward, if you qualify in 2021, which again, my spreadsheet will tell you if you do or not, then you can claim it on your 941s, your quarterly 941s, or you can actually fill out what is called Form 7200, which is something that can actually allow you to get your money faster. But you have to do the 7200. Once you file your 941, you can't do the 7200. So I don't go into details on how to fill all that out, because I will direct you to your accountant to help you with that piece and to your payroll company. But definitely get the spreadsheet so that you even know if it's worth the conversation, right? Thank you, Bree. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay. So you don't automatically, oh, sorry. Julia's asking one more question. If we qualify for Q1 2021, do we automatically qualify for Q2? If you qualify in Q1 because your gross receipts are down by at least 20%, again, I'm not going to get into all the specifics. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the video on it. But if you're down by at least 20%, then in Q1 of 2021, then yes, you automatically qualify in Q2 of 2021. I also know, I think there's a decent chance that it could get extended. Right now, it just goes through Q2. If it gets extended, I'll update my spreadsheet. The one thing I'm working on still is there is some debate on Q1 of 2021, if you can qualify in Q1 of 2021, if you had a 20% or more decline in Q4 of 2020. So there may be a possibility. Right now, my spreadsheet does not say that because I want to see it in IRS print first before I put that out there. So my spreadsheet's a little conservative from that, right? But talk to your accountant, because even if it says maybe you don't qualify for Q1 of 2021, if you did have more than a 20% drop in Q4, you might. And I might be, once I see it enough places that I feel comfortable in that answer, then I'll update the spreadsheet and send it out to you. So always make sure that you're checking for updated versions of the spreadsheet, because as we get clarifications and things like that, I like to resend them out to whoever has purchased them. So you don't have to buy it again. You will just, thank you, Jula, you will just automatically get the new one. So let's see. What about people who got withheld less taxes because of the retention law? Do they get a credit? Do they get a credit? So you already got the credit. So if you withheld less, so if you paid less on your 941s, you've already claimed it, right? So if you've already claimed it on your 941s, if you claimed it last year, you're great. This is for people who previously, before December 27th, you couldn't get ERTC if you got PPP. So most people got PPP, and so they didn't claim it last year at all on their 941s. So now that we know you can have both, and they've changed that, now people are for the most part, going to have to go back and amend. And you can usually amend it in just Q4. Even if you qualified in Q2, Q3, and Q4, you can do the amendment all in Q4. So you don't have to amend every single one of them. But again, work with your payroll company, work with your accountant on how to do it. But it can be a very large amount of money. And let's just, real quick, tax credit is not the same as a tax deduction. A tax credit is tax-free money in your pocket. That's what it is. A tax credit is, when I say a $19,000 tax credit, I don't mean a deduction you can take against income. I mean, literally, they reduce the amount of taxes you owe by that amount of money. That's why it's important. Same thing for those of you guys who are self-employed. Maybe you're not employers, so ERTC doesn't apply to you. If you're self-employed, you want to make sure that you're taking a tax credit on your tax returns. This is different. This is not on payroll reports, because self-employed, you don't have payroll reports. On your tax return for COVID sick leave and for COVID paid family leave. If you stayed home with kids because their place of school or care was closed, you can potentially get this. You can potentially qualify. So if you're curious if you qualify, I did a video about that on Wednesday. That one's also linked above for my self-employed friends. I also have a calculator for you guys, and you're still in the $7 intro pricing period, so you can grab that calculator for $7. I think it's really useful because you can actually make sure that what's being calculated by either your accountant who's doing your taxes or what's being calculated by your accounting software is actually calculating it correctly, and that you don't miss this credit. Don't miss it. So my self-employed people, you can get up to $15,000 of a tax credit, i.e. money that is dollar for dollar reducing your taxes for COVID sick leave. And oftentimes that even applies if you were just shut down for a period of time by a governmental authority, you can get that too. Now, there are some rules around you can't take it if you also got unemployment at that time, or if you also paid yourself with PPP during that time. But if not, you could get quite a bit on this. That was one that I know a lot of people have been surprised by as well, and you can very easily miss it on your tax return. Very, very easily. A lot of tax accountants don't know about it too. Again, send that video to your tax accountant and tell them to make sure that they claim it. Okay. Let's see. It depends on when you bought it, Sharon. So if you bought it the first day, there's probably been one or two. I'm trying to remember, maybe just one. If you bought it later, though, you might have the most updated one. So I try not to send out a ton of little updates. I try to send out, if you buy it towards the beginning, usually you'll see a few more updates because we're just kind of working out all the kinks and everything like that. But you will automatically get a revised spreadsheet. You can always search for Balance CFO. Make sure to check your promotions folder too, you guys, when you are waiting for these. They get emailed to you and a lot of people miss it. So search your inbox for Balance CFO. For self-employed, so this is where, isn't this fun? So ERTC is Form 7200. That's not in your income tax filing, okay? For FFCRA, i.e. COVID sick leave for self-employed people, it's Form 7202, but that's part of your income tax filing. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. I don't know why I picked 1:30 Central Time on Fridays to do these lives, you guys. It's literally pandemonium in my house every 1:30. I picked this like an eternity ago, and I'm stuck with it to be consistent, and it's the worst timing. I picked it originally because it was when my daughter was supposed to be sleeping, and then she dropped her nap literally like a month into doing these. So now it's pandemonium here around 1:30. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps, April. But yes, So the FFCRA leave, the COVID sick leave for self-employed people, because you don't have payroll reports, you will claim it with your Form 1040, your income tax return that you will file. And it's going to be a form within that. So like if you watch my video from Wednesday, I actually pulled it up in TurboTax to show you, like, not that I recommend, that is not an endorsement of TurboTax. I really like when people work with tax accountants, but I pulled it up just to show you what it would look like. And it's also kind of hidden. It may not ask you. So remember, when you're using, and that's one of the problems with the tax software, is that when you use a tax software, it tries to think about, like, what are the things that might apply to you. But even as a self-employed person, it did not bring that up as an option for me. I had to go searching through, like, the other deductions and credits that might be available to you. There's a massive laundry list, and go find it. So it's not necessarily going to, like, put it in your face and say, like, hey, you need to claim this. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing your taxes, and why I'm shouting from the rooftops not to forget that credit, you guys. Okay. Alrighty. So what other questions do you guys have? I'm looking back through. So Cabbage approved my PPP-1 on 7/23. Great. After 10 weeks of owner pay, shouldn't I have 10 months to apply for forgiveness? Yes. So August 1. Surprised that they sent me an email that my first payment should be 3/23. They are incorrect. That's a weird, so 7/23, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Am I doing that right? 8, 9, I'm literally going to count on my hands, you guys. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why your first payment would be due 8 months from when you got the loan. That doesn't make any sense. They are actually not allowed to be taking payment. You have 10 months from the end of, really it's usually your 24 weeks ultimately, but yes, you have 10 weeks from the end of your covered period to apply for forgiveness before they can start requiring you to pay back the loan. A lot of people who got loans early on in the process, it said 6 months in the loan documents. That's not true. So if you start getting bills, you should not need to pay. You need to go follow back up with your bank about it, because that has changed. And so now you can even apply for forgiveness after the 10 months, you guys. I don't recommend it. I think you want to get it done before then. But what happens is they're going to start requiring you to make payments beforehand. So you can apply at any time for forgiveness if you want to, but you might have already had to start making payments. So it makes more sense to do it within the 10 months. Let's see. Oh, this is important too. You don't have to upload any forms. You do have to keep documentation, which I do talk about in the live on Wednesday this is about the COVID sick leave and the family leave. You do have to keep some documentation in case you're ever audited, just like receipts and things like that. I talk about what kinds of things you would want to keep to have. Importantly though, I don't know if this is going to change, but I know some providers are not letting you e-file. So you may not be able to e-file if you're claiming this this credit. So the Form 7202, I believe right now, is not e-fileable, which means you actually would have to print it off and send it, or your tax accountant would have to do it. So another reason to make sure you're getting it, because you don't want anybody to cut corners just because they can't e-file. You want to make sure that you're grabbing this. It's worth the cost of the stamp, you guys, to send it in if you need to. Let's see. Let me look back through. Can you utilize ERTC on payroll earned in a qualifying quarter but paid just after the qualifying quarter? I wonder how that's done. Usually payroll is based on, well, it may depend on whether you're cash or accrual basis in your accounting method as to how that goes. I'm not sure. I'm curious to see how the payroll providers are doing this. Are they doing it based on when it was earned, or are they doing it like when the periods you were paying for, or are they doing it based on cash movement? I'm not sure. I haven't seen that actually specified. Doesn't mean it isn't, but I haven't seen it specified as to which. Do I need to submit evidence of the ERTC revenue reduction to the IRS? No, but you should have it. So you don't have to specifically, just like with most things, right? With most things, they're not going to require you to submit evidence directly to the IRS. The IRS doesn't want all of that stuff, but you always should have it, because if you guys, for all the things you're doing, if you haven't sat down and document it as much as you can about your funds, like whatever, your PPP funds, your EIDL funds, your ERTC. Document it all, because you're going to forget it. You're going to forget it, and it's going to be really hard to come back. Don't just claim it and then not have any documentation, because if and when you are audited in a couple of years, which you guys, that's often what happens, usually a couple of years in arrears, you're not going to remember any of it. And so when they ask you to prove out, when you paid money with your PPP and your ERTC, and when you're claiming all these different things, you're not going to remember. And they may then say, okay, well, you're going to have to give us a whole bunch of money back. And I don't want that to happen to you guys. So I want you guys to document it out. I'm literally, for me, I recommend print a calendar out of the year. So if you got unemployment during part of the year, if you got PPP during part of the year, especially if you're using it to pay for yourself, right? If you got FFCRA, like literally plot it out on a calendar, because I think that is going to be helpful for you to make sure that you're not like accidentally double dipping, which I think is going to happen to people. I'm just going to say, I think some people are going to accidentally not realize, like, you can get a lot of these different funding and stack them, but you can't often use them for the same time period, right? So you can't, like ERTC, you can qualify for a quarter that you got PPP in, but if you paid your wages with PPP, you can't also claim either, your ERTC on it. You also can't claim your FFCRA, COVID sick leave on top of that. Like, you just have to be really careful what you're doing here, which is another reason that I recommend working with a professional to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and everything's tied in a bow, right? And that you're not left vulnerable if you're ever I don't want to say come after, but if they come back later and ask for more support, which I do think is likely, don't think that yours is so small that they don't care. Don't just assume, there's bigger, they're going to go after the bigger guys. That's not necessarily the case, you guys. Okay. I contacted QuickBooks to help with the ERTC credit and the 941X. They knew nothing about it. QuickBooks Payroll or just QuickBooks? So QuickBooks themselves, they're not going to be they're an accounting system. So QuickBooks themselves. QuickBooks Payroll should know how to do a 941X, because they're the ones that are doing your 941s. So that is alarming if they are going to tell you they don't know anything about it. That said, they can't advise you. So the trouble that it comes in, if it's very clean, right, you can go to your payroll company, and in some cases, like I know Gusto has a report and things that you can automatically file to get, to do your 941X and everything and to get your credit. But where it becomes trouble is if you've gotten PPP specifically, because if you've gotten PPP, you need to back those wages out, and your payroll company has no idea how much of your wages were paid of PPP, because that didn't run through payroll, right? Your PPP was nothing you ever entered into your payroll system. So if you just go by what your payroll reports say that you can claim, you might end up claiming too much if you got PPP as well. You need to make sure that gets backed off of it, which is really, really important. So yeah. So again, they're not going to advise. They can't. They're not really allowed to advise, but they should be able to tell you how to file a 941X and be aware that it was for that. Jackie says QuickBooks Payroll is not very helpful with it. Yeah. Yes. So that, again, accountant is going to be more helpful. Jackie's one of our preferred vendors, y'all. I don't know if she's taking any more clients on that specifically, but if she is, but yes, it is for sure something that your payroll company. Here's another reason that I personally like Gusto better. Because Gusto Payroll has been really friendly to people from the standpoint of going through all this COVID stuff with the reports that they've done. I've just been really impressed by all that they've made available and the help that they've made available. If you guys are looking for a new payroll processor, think about Gusto instead. I like QuickBooks, the accounting system. I don't like QuickBooks Payroll because the support is awful, as we can see. I really like Gusto though. So jamietrull.com/Gusto. I'll put it down here. If you guys want to grab, you get a free month of Gusto and a $100 gift card if you sign up through my link. So it's also my website, but jamietrull.com/Gusto. There it is. I just think that they do a better job. I don't know. Good. I'm so glad. Okay. Let's see. Jason says, does a 50% reduced capacity mandate by PA qualify for ERTC even if you don't qualify with a 20% reduction? Yes, so that would be partially shut down. So in that video, I have a decision tree that I walk through. And if you don't meet the gross receipts test, you want to meet the gross, well, you don't really want to meet the gross receipts reduction test because that means you were down by too much. But that's the way to get the biggest credit is if you meet the decline in gross receipts. You can still get a credit potentially though for the time that you were partially shut down. So that's the other option. It can only be, it can't be taken on the whole quarter, just that time that you were actually shut down during, you potentially could get a credit. And the amount of that credit is going to depend on what your average number of employees is. So if you had under 100 employees, you get to take a credit for all the wages paid while you were partially shut down, even though people were working. If you have over 100, you can only take a credit for people you paid who weren't actually working. So go through that, grab my calculator, go through the decision tree. You'll see it aligns it, shows it in a much more understandable way than what I could actually say here. Let's see. Yes, they're not the best. What is the accountant supposed to do? Is the credit managed by the payroll company? My accountant said to contact the payroll company to edit the 941s. Okay, here's how I see, like in an ideal world, here's an ideal world. Maybe I'm living in a fantasy world, but in an ideal world, here's how I see it. Your accountant that hopefully you have, if you don't, this is a great time. Well, this isn't a great time to go get one because they're hard to find ones that are qualified, but in an ideal world, you have a qualified accountant who understands and is keeping up with this stuff and doing the continuing education on it, right? So you go to them and you say, okay, I need to calculate this out. Here's Jamie's calculator, right? I've done my best to put in, and here's the quarters I think I qualify. They can check that you've put all the information in correctly. Then you kind of estimate out based on your payroll report how much your pay was, or how much you paid, how much qualifying wages you had, which is part of that spreadsheet as well. And you do your best to back out any payroll paid with PPP. That's something you might want to get help with. Your accountant should help you say, okay, let's make sure based on maybe the PPP forgiveness application and how that was filled out, that you're claiming the exact amount of payroll and you're backing that off of the calculation correctly. They should be helping with the back end calculation. The actual filing of the amended 941 probably is your payroll company, but you're probably going to have to do it. So, you have to tell them what to do. Your payroll company is not going to do that for you. And like I said, they have no idea how much PPP funds you got or how you spent it or any of that, and what time period you spent it over. So that's where your accountant should be partnering with you, right? To sit down. And again, it depends on if you have an ongoing accountant. If you only use your accountant once a year for taxes, then this might not be part of the services that they offer, or they might charge you extra to do something like this, which I think they should, right, for consulting. But they should be able to sit down with you and look at your calculation and work it out with you and make sure it's correct. And then help you with figuring out how you need to modify your 941X. And depending on what your payroll company does on the other side, right, some do a little bit more than others with regards to assist you in that. But then there's also, for 2021, the Form 7200, where you need to look with your accountant on projecting out if you think you're going to be, that this is going to be something you would qualify for in Q1 and Q2. You can get your money earlier by filing Form 7200 and not waiting for filing your 941s. So that's something an accountant should be able to help you with. If they can't, that's where it gets tougher. I do have a person that I'm going to be partnering with soon, probably next week, on giving you guys a contact for somebody you can do a consult with on ERTC specifically that you can pay. It doesn't have to be your ongoing accountant. Maybe you really like your accountant, but they don't seem to know a ton about this. I am currently working on that because that has been something that a lot of my preferred vendors, unfortunately, are booked up. So, or they're not taking specific consults right now. So I'm looking for that to be able to provide to you someone who you can just pay a fee to sit down with you and walk through this and make sure all your calculations are correct and help you file the forms that you need to file. Because there is a huge disparity right now. I'm going to say it. There's a huge disparity in the need that people have for qualified accountants who are up to speed on this, who are doing services and are available right now, and the actual amount of supply. There's a huge supply and demand problem right now. So if you have one that's really great, you are in the minority right now. And I wish I get a lot of people asking me to do this. Number one, you don't want me filing your 941X. You know why? I've never filed one. I don't practice on the tax side. That's not my bread and butter. I am a profit strategist, financial literacy coach. Yes, I'm a CPA, but I don't file taxes for people. I never have. So I understand theory, but in practice, you probably don't want me doing it. Secondly, it's just a capacity time. I would love to be able to help people one-on-one, but I try to really focus on educating people as much as possible. So I am looking though for consultants to give you guys as a resource to say, hey, book a call with this person. I think I know who it's going to be, and I'll be coming back to you next week on the process for doing that, because I want everybody to have qualified help. I just think that's really, really important. Yes, Gusto's doing a great job, I think, with all the relief stuff. Let's see. Can we use the first PPP tracker to keep track of PPP2? Yes. So yes, there have been some changes that haven't been run through the tracker, however. So one of the main changes there that has not been run through the tracker is the fact, and it's actually, we're trying to figure out exactly how to run it through the tracker, and it may not be practical to do, but the fact that you can pick now a time frame between 8 and 24 weeks. Right now you have to pick either the 8-week tracker or the 24-week tracker. So short of making a 8-week tracker, a 9-week tracker, a 10-week tracker, an 11-week tracker, it gets really tough for us to actually affect that, just the way that the tracker calculations work. So I think you can use it as a guidepost. It also hasn't been updated for the fact that you can actually use PPP on a lot of other different things. Right now, we just have the original things that you could use it for: rent, utilities, things like that listed. But now there's a broader list of things that you can use it for. I'm not sure if we're going to update it, just because of the complexity of some of this, and the fact that most people don't really even need it as much anymore, because if you're under 50,000, they've taken away all the FTE requirements. So the thing that was most useful about our spreadsheet was the ability to calculate your average, your comparison period average FTE versus your covered period average FTE. A lot of people don't have to worry about that anymore, because either their loan was under 50,000 and so they don't have to worry about their FTEs, or they meet one of the safe harbors. And so if you meet one of the safe harbors, you don't have to worry about FTEs either. So that is where you can find it. It's still available, jamietrull.com/PPP tracker. But again, it has not been updated for all the guidance. It can still be used as a guidepost though, to help you guys. So let's see. I could do it. It would take a lot of time and effort. And right now I'm trying to be able to serve people on ERTC and all these other things. So it's just something that is a little bit challenging to get through when now a lot less people need that, because they don't need that full FTE calculation. So I think it was more useful in the past when everybody had to do this mind-numbing calculation, but now that so many people don't, hopefully there's less need for that spreadsheet in general. But it's still a really good place to use for tracking and things like that. Okay, let's see. Mark says, on your ERTC sheet, can you just subtract total PPP wages from the total calculated by the total for the year, or does it have to be per employee? So here's the big thing that is crazy with this. You really have to do it. You can't really do it in total. And the reason is because the limits are on a per employee basis, right? So that's where it gets really tricky, because a lot of people don't know like what they paid, who they paid PPP to, right? Like what employees during what pay periods were paid with PPP and all of that. It gets a little bit tough to like ferret all that out and work all that out. But theoretically, the limits are on a per employee basis. It's calculated on a per employee basis. So you want to have some sort of documentation on that for who you paid and when. And again, this is where an accountant can help you. Another thing your accountant should do, ideally, especially if you have not applied yet for forgiveness, you might be able to optimize. So if you're going to get ERTC, if you want to get the biggest ERTC, the biggest tax credit you can from your employee retention, and you got PPP and you haven't applied for forgiveness yet, well, dang, they can help you figure out how to optimize that to the point where you're claiming, it used to be like, it makes the most sense to just claim 100% of your PPP as used for payroll, right? That's easy. There was no reason not to do that. You had to give less documentation and things like that. Well, now, number one, for most loans for under 150K, you don't really have to provide much documentation anyway, right, for your loans. And number two, it's actually better for less of it to have gone to payroll. Why? Because that gives you more wages to claim your employee retention credit on. So that's another strategic thing that in an ideal world, right, your accountant could help you work out. And so I think that is another, yes, exactly. Yeah, working on clients' forgiveness, and you want to just optimize that as best you can so that you can claim the biggest ERTC credit possible, right? So you do kind of need to map out, here's where my PPP went, here's who I paid, here's where, right? And make sure you can tie that to your forgiveness application for the total amount of payroll. And then do that in such a way that it maximizes the amount that you can still get PPP forgiveness, and it maximizes the amount that you can claim on your ERTC. That, for most people, is something you want to have help with. It really is, and it'll be worth it to get that help. Okay. All right. Let's see. So thanks for this. You're welcome. I use the calculator, and I'm working with my payroll guy, and he's going to submit all my paperwork to the IRS. Rather than wait for the IRS to give us a refund, we're going to use the credits for upcoming payroll. It's a complicated subject, but you made it so simple. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Yes, so you can definitely do that where you can actually use the credits for upcoming payroll rather than waiting on the refund. There are a couple different ways that this can go down, but I'm really glad that the calculator helped. So for those of you guys who haven't gotten it, it's definitely worth it to see if this is even something you need to go down the process of trying to find someone to help you with. And like I said, I will update you probably next week on whether I've found someone who can help you in a more one-to-one fashion with this stuff. So, okay, guys, y'all are awesome. It is 2:15. And I have got to run because, again, my house is crazy right now, and we're having a little bit of a snow party here in a little bit. So we're gonna have a little fun time. My kids have been off school all week, obviously, because we cannot get out of the driveway. So, and we're making lasagna tonight. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great night. So you guys are awesome, and I will talk to you later.